how can you preserve privacy while scaling the distributed system?
At the end of the day, building things like blockchains, Web3 in general, these systems they give us a lot of integrity. So they give us a lot of benefits, but they lack privacy. So you need other kind of solutions like very deep cryptography, let's say. But those two are kind of like in opposition. So the more cryptography like you put into your system, the longer it takes to do stuff. Like just so people understand, when each one of you take your phone and log into your bank account, there's a lot of cryptography. There's encryption, there's handshakes, there's a lot of like very complicated security protocols that are happening. And if we didn't have them, then it would be much faster, right? Like that authentication, we've been able over the decades to take it from like minutes or seconds to milliseconds. So you don't feel it as much, but there's still an overhead. And now with like this Web3 and blockchain and decentralized technologies, like, yeah, they're amazing, they give us a lot of new benefits, but they're slower. And now you want to also protect privacy, you make it even slower than that. And I think the upside is that there's been billions of dollars put in both research and development into these technologies in the past years. And it's, I think the latest figure that I heard this year is that the speed of which you can scale privacy-preserving technologies, it accelerates by, like, let's say, the speed doubles every year or so. So there's an exponential speed up to making these technologies more scalable. And obviously, at some point, we'll saturate, but I do think that we'll end up at a place where you can almost have your cake and eat it too, right? Like you can get to a place where, kind of like with how we log into our bank account, it's fast enough so that you don't really feel the delay. There is a delay, right? But maybe it's 20%, 40, 50% more expensive, but you then get all the benefits that you want. So that would be my take.
All right, guys, I forgot to ask you the second question at the same time. The second question was,
sure.
Without accessing data in the raw form, in your case, this can preserve privacy, but on the other hand, how could the data user ensure that the data has integrity, or that the data they're working with is correct and have good quality?
So this is actually a question I've been asked for like maybe 8 years now, and it's the most important question, because if you think about, let's take Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, the whole value proposition is that no one can double spend. If I send you Bitcoin, then, or any digital asset, doesn't matter what, but let's say Bitcoin, then you need to be comfortable, but everyone needs to be comfortable that I have those Bitcoins to send. I'm not sending them to two different people. I'm not making up coins that I don't have because that's fraud, or that's like taking on debt that the system does not allow. So, and the point is that those systems are kind of meant to be transparent, right? Everyone needs to be able to kind of do the accounting themselves and see that no one is like inventing assets that they don't have. So how do you balance that if like everything is encrypted, everything is like completely like not, like if it's not transparent, then how can people actually verify that? And this is where these new technologies come into place. It turns out that there's types of cryptography like homomorphic encryption, multi-party computation. What technology exactly we use doesn't really matter. But the point is that there are technologies that allow us to get both. They allow us to do an operation with integrity. They allow us to prove, for example, that I did not double spend my assets. I did not invent new coins that I do not have. My credit score, for example, is above a certain threshold. Right? Well, like we can do all of that, but we don't without actually revealing the underlying data. So you can actually do both.
So the answer to both questions, at least, is that the technology is improving every day.
It is. So it's an important point. The technology has existed for about 30 to 40 years now. Until 10 years ago, no one, like if you would ask like a cryptographer or like even people from our lab, like, hey, can I use this in practice? They would probably like laugh because it wasn't scalable enough. But the last decade, we're going like exponentially faster to making them usable. Yeah.
Thank you, Rai. The next question is for Luis, Dr. Luis. How to get a diverse group of people on your urban planning project to collaborate, especially when they don't like one another. So they have alignment and move towards the common goal. They are having conflicts, such as the case of like town planning that you show. And the second question is, part of the problem we see is the slowness of the decision making of the human side, not the technology. So the target of the system that we desire for cannot be reached efficiently or quickly. So it is boiling down to what incentives should you use, and such as whether just a simple carrot and stick work or not.
Wow, yeah, super easy questions. So, well, I think the most important thing is to realize that during the last 9,000 years, let's say, we have 9,000 years, depends on who you ask, the cities, they used to be the innovation hubs where humans we used to share ideas in a very workable, diverse, and compact kind of ecosystem. And in the last 200 years, that has been changed. That's very interesting because what it means is that humans, we are very used to share ideas with unlikely partners. The cities, they used to be these ecosystems where you used to have unlikely partners. If we look a little bit into the, let's say, 18th, 19th century Paris, you used to have, in the first floor, you used to have the shop of a shop, okay? Then in the second floor of the building, you used to have the owner of the shop. In the next floor, you used to have the people working in the shop. In the next floor, you used to have the person cleaning, cooking, and in the attic, you have the artists, the architects, you know, people, very low-income people. But the synergy between all of these very diverse people bring the avant-gardes. Because the high-income person started looking into the person upstairs, and it was like, wow, the only person who can afford to have art is the king, and I am the new bourgeoisie, and I wanna be able to have my own art. Okay, so this high-income person start talking with the low-income person in the attic, and they make synergies between them, and they build the Art Nouveau, the new art, let's say, and all the avant-gardes, and now the sector of art is huge. I mean, so that's one very quick example of how cities and innovation happen when you have diverse people sharing ideas. So every time that we go into, well, actually, the evolution with mass transportation, the cars, industrialization of the cities, this diversity has started like to break down, and every one of us is living in a small echo chamber. Okay, so we are just living with people like us, sharing ideas with people like us, and now with the social networks, even if I don't like, even if I am like maybe a person that next to me, but if I don't like his ideas, I can just block him in the social network. And in COVID, we are totally isolated now. No? Even if I like the person and I want to hack the person, I cannot even hack. So we are in the most individualistic moment in history when we say that diversity is bringing innovation. Okay? So what I am trying to say is that this is the first time in history that we have 25 mayors knocking at the door of the group saying, hey, I want to have an innovation district. And we are like, listen, the city should be an innovation itself. I mean, historically was the place of innovation. So to be honest, I think unlikely partners, they have hunger to work together. Even in this polarized world. We just need to give the excuse to say, hey, do you want to work with MIT? And then the magic happens. So we have collaborations, again, in 10 cities, in 5 different continents. And what we see is that as soon as you offer the opportunity to, hey, let's work together in the ecosystem of MIT through this kind of framework, people usually tries to come together and try to solve the problems, because I think humans is in our DNA to work with people that we don't like and try to solve problems. I am very positive on that. Then, how do we incentivize people to use the decentralized autonomous organizations, for instance? That's a very good question. It's something that obviously we don't know yet, but we are exploring different ideas. And first thing, usually everybody talks about gamification. Okay, you need to have the gamification part. But when you look into very successful games like Pokemon, for instance, Pokemon Go, it has like a huge hype, but then in some point lose that hype. So you need, people say that the carrot or the stick, no? You need to incentivize with a carrot or with the stick, but that's not enough. What you need to have is the gamification. Then on top of that, you need to encourage people and help people to engage with the let's say, the goal of the thing. So let's share data for a pro-social goal, okay? So if we share the data, we are gonna reduce congestion. People usually look into that and say, hey, I wanna keep playing because as much as I play, I am solving a problem. That is pollution, is climate change, etc. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is a reward, okay? Even if we are very generous, sometimes we like to have some kind of reward that is like, maybe it's an economical reward, so, or maybe it's like the community saying, okay, you are greener than this other person. So that's kind of the three elements. And in the case of the reward, if you can link that with the data, so these data cooperatives that we were talking before, maybe that reward can get directly from the tokens. So you are killing like two birds with one stone because you are sharing data and you are incentivizing the person to share the data, but at the same time to be part of the game. So that's kind of my answer. It's very difficult questions, by the way. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Luis. So to Ziv, could you expand for the audience a bit on the key differences between the current and the next-gen social media? And the second question would be, since you plan to decouple the three layers of social media, which are data, algorithm, interface, in order to break the monopoly of existing platform, how would a consumer benefit from doing so? And perhaps how can we encourage efficient competition and incentive alignment at each of the layers?
Yeah, great questions. This guy really kind of cuts to the essence of the problems, I think. So just to restate that first question, we're thinking about the key differences between the centralized social media that we have today and the decentralized social networks that hopefully we'll all have tomorrow. And ultimately, I think the key thing that we'll kind of experience as users is more autonomy and agency in the way we interact with these systems. Right now, when I open up my news feed, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever, I don't really know where this content's coming from. What algorithm has filtered these things? How long ago is it? What algorithm is being served to me? The interfaces, the decisions that are made, who decided that? Where does that stuff come from? Ultimately, it's a complete black box for a user of a social media platform. I don't know where my data is stored. I'm worried that if Twitter goes under tomorrow, all my adorable tweets will be gone forever. So in that world, there's not so much autonomy and agency for users interacting with their platforms. The goal of the future with decentralized social networks, I think, is more of that. So, maybe you open up your phone, you're like, you know what, today I want really serious news. I want to grapple with the complexity of the earth. Maybe you can set your news feed to give you that kind of content from people you trust. Or maybe you want to take the day off and just look at cat memes all day. That's great. You can actually choose to have the agency in what kinds of content you want. Maybe you want something that's kind of light, or it's a grayscale, so you don't feel all the colors are distracting you. Or maybe you want something very kind of bright and playful and colorful. It's all about giving humans ability to kind of express themselves and choose the kind of interactions that they want. So I think the key thing that we're really going for here is just new modes of interactivity and agency for users, since ultimately it's kind of for them and it should be for their benefit. The second question was more about, we have these three layers of an interoperable kind of modular social media system. The underlying data, the algorithms that data is filtered through, and then finally the interface that the user kind of interacts with. And I think there are these questions of how do we encourage correct competition on a free market for each of these modules, and what might it look like to kind of interact with all these things. And so I think the key thing here is, we've kind of wound ourselves into a monopolistic situation where a couple big key players control the kind of means of production in each of these modules. So I think we need, complex systems require complex interventions. We need both carrots and sticks to kind of help break this up and create these kind of new modules. So, for interfaces, we need new innovation. We need spaces for people to prototype and hack and play. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with your feed, is actually actually give people a framework within to kind of develop the next generation of these interfaces. As far as the data side, I think this data cooperatives that we've been mentioning is a really interesting and kind of exciting way to have users regain governance and control over their own data and their own experiences. And so across these things, we ultimately need innovation from startups and new actors. We need regulation from governments to break up these monopolies as well. And we need new protocols for all of these modules to talk to each other in reliable and trustworthy ways. And hopefully, if we have all of those, then we can have that kind of autonomy and agency that we deserve, I think, in our platforms. Thanks.